All right, let's get straight to it. Imagine every sci-fi movie you've ever seen: flying saucers, little green men, intergalactic wars. What if I told you that the entire concept of aliens coming from space might not just be wrong, it might be scientifically impossible? Yeah, I know, bold claim. But stick with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to break this down using math, science, and a 1-minute technique that makes the idea of aliens coming from space practically fall apart. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room: UFOs. You've seen the footage, those weird, fast-moving objects defying all logic, zipping across the sky like they're late for a meeting in another galaxy. But here's the kicker: the idea that these objects are piloted by aliens traveling from another star system doesn't hold up under the harsh light of physics. And no, this isn't just my opinion, it's the opinion of astrophysicists who've actually run the numbers. Take Dr. Hugh Ross, for example. He's an astrophysicist who points out one of the biggest barriers to interstellar travel: space itself is not your friend. You see, the space between stars isn't empty, it's filled with tiny particles of dust and gas. Now, these particles might not seem like a big deal, but when you're traveling at even a fraction of the speed of light, they become deadly. Here's why: Einstein's equation, E=mc², tells us that energy increases exponentially with speed. So if you're traveling faster and faster, the energy these tiny particles hit you with grows exponentially. It's not just a little damage, it's catastrophic. Even if you're in the most advanced spacecraft imaginable, going even a tenth of the speed of light would cause enough damage to rip your ship apart. And let's not even get started on the idea of biological organisms surviving such a trip. Spoiler alert, they wouldn't.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Now, here's where the 1-minute technique comes in. If you've got a pen and paper, or even just your phone's calculator, try this. Imagine a spacecraft traveling at 10% the speed of light. That's about 18,600 miles per second. Now, let's say it hits a single particle of dust in space. The kinetic energy of that collision is the equivalent of a small bomb going off. Multiply that by the millions of particles a ship would encounter, and well, you get the picture. It's not happening. But wait, what about smaller spacecraft? Couldn't they just send tiny probes? Great question. Dr. Ross actually mentions a real-world experiment on this. Scientists have suggested sending thousands of tiny 10-centimeter wide spacecraft to the nearest star system, Alpha Centauri. Why so small? Because the bigger the craft, the more damage it takes. Even with these tiny spacecraft, over half are expected to be completely destroyed before they even get close to their destination. And remember, this is just 4.2 light years away, basically next door on a cosmic scale. Now imagine trying to cross hundreds or thousands of light years. So let's pause here for a second. If the numbers clearly show that interstellar travel is practically impossible, why are we so drawn to this idea that aliens are coming from space? Is it because we want to believe, or is it because we haven't considered the alternatives? Stick with me, because in the next part, we're going to explore a mind-blowing alternative explanation for UFOs that flips the entire alien narrative on its head. All right, welcome back. So, if aliens aren't coming from space, then what's going on with all these UFO sightings? Are we just imagining things? Is it all government tech? Or is there something else, something we're not ready to accept? Here's where things get wild. During recent congressional testimony on UFOs, the term interdimensional was thrown around. Yeah, not extraterrestrial, interdimensional. Let that sink in for a second. What this means is that these phenomena might not be physical beings from another planet, but something entirely different, beings or manifestations that exist in dimensions beyond our own. Now, I know what you're thinking, interdimensional? That sounds even crazier than space aliens. But hear me out, because there's actually some logic to this idea. In fact, when you start digging into the evidence, the interdimensional hypothesis starts making way more sense than the extraterrestrial one. First, let's address the classic UFO sightings. People describe these craft as defying physics. They move at impossible speeds, make sharp turns that should crush any biological occupant, and sometimes even appear or disappear instantly. If these were physical spacecraft, they'd be breaking every law of physics we know. But if they're interdimensional, they're not bound by our physical laws in the first place. What looks like a 90-degree turn to us might just be them shifting between dimensions. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Dr. Ross and other experts point out that many UFO encounters have characteristics that are more spiritual than physical. Think about it: craft that seem to appear out of nowhere, beings that communicate telepathically, experiences that leave people feeling like they've encountered something otherworldly, but not in a little green men kind of way. Could it be that what we're dealing with isn't aliens at all, but something closer to what ancient cultures have described as spiritual beings? This ties into another big question: why are UFOs so elusive? I mean, think about it. If aliens were truly visiting us from another planet, why wouldn't they just land on the White House lawn and say, "Hey, we're here"? Instead, what we see are fleeting glimpses, cryptic encounters, and phenomena that seem designed to confuse rather than communicate. If these are interdimensional beings, it makes sense they're not operating on our level of reality. Now, here's a question for you. What if the answer has been staring us in the face all along? What if these so-called aliens are really just another version of something humanity has always believed in: angels, demons, spirits? If that's true, what does it say about our understanding of reality? Before we move on, let's recap. We've seen that interstellar travel is nearly impossible, and we've explored the idea that UFOs might not be physical objects at all, but interdimensional phenomena. But here's the kicker: if these beings are interdimensional, what's their purpose? Why are they here? Stick around, because in the final part, we're going to uncover the deeper implications of this idea, and trust me, it's going to blow your mind. All right, let's bring it home. If these interdimensional beings are real, and if they're the ones behind the UFO phenomena, the big question is why? What do they want? Here's where things get a little uncomfortable. Dr. Ross and others suggest that these beings might not have our best interests at heart. Think about it: if they're not physical aliens from another planet, then they're not bound by the same motivations we'd expect from extraterrestrials. They're not here to trade technology or share wisdom. Instead, their behavior seems to be more about manipulation and deception. Let's go deeper. Many UFO encounters involve bizarre, almost dreamlike experiences. People report feeling paralyzed, hearing strange messages, or even having their perceptions altered. Sound familiar? These are the same kinds of phenomena described in ancient accounts of spiritual encounters. Could it be that these beings are deliberately presenting themselves in ways that confuse and mislead us? And here's the craziest part: if they're interdimensional, they might not even be beings in the way we understand. They could be manifestations of something bigger, something that exists outside our understanding of time and space. What if they're observing us, influencing us, or even testing us? Now, I want you to think about this. What if the reason we've never found evidence of extraterrestrial life is because we've been looking in the wrong place? What if the answers aren't out there in space, but right here, hidden in the very fabric of our reality? So where does this leave us? For one, it challenges everything we think we know about aliens, UFOs, and even reality itself. It forces us to ask deeper questions about who we are, why we're here, and what else might be out there or right here, watching us. And here's the final takeaway: the universe is stranger and more complex than we can possibly imagine. Whether you believe in interdimensional beings, spiritual phenomena, or something else entirely, one thing is clear: the truth is out there, but it's not what we thought. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You've just taken a deep dive into one of the most mind-bending topics out there. Now, the question is, what do you think? Are aliens really from space, or is there something much, much bigger going on? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to share this video with someone who needs their mind blown today. And hey, if you want to keep exploring the mysteries of the universe, hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more where this came from. Until next time, stay curious. All right, so here's the thing: the more you think about this, the more questions it raises. If interdimensional beings are real, if they're the ones behind UFO sightings, what does it say about reality itself? What if the world as we know it is just a fraction of a much larger, much more complex system? Let's take this even deeper. We've talked about how these beings might not be physical in the way we are, but what if they're operating on a level of reality that we can't even perceive? Think about it this way: we live in 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. But what if there are other dimensions where the rules of physics as we know them don't apply? What if time isn't linear? What if space can fold in on itself? To us, that might sound like science fiction, but to an interdimensional being, it could just be normal. It would explain why UFOs appear to move so erratically, why they seem to defy gravity, and why they're able to appear and disappear at will. They're not breaking the laws of physics, they're just playing by a completely different set of rules. Here's an analogy. Imagine you're a 2-dimensional being living on a piece of paper. Your entire world is flat. You can only move left, right, forward, or backward. Now imagine a 3-dimensional being, a human, comes along and picks up that piece of paper. It would look like the human just disappeared into thin air. But to the human, they're just stepping into a dimension you can't comprehend. Could that be what's happening with UFOs? Are they stepping into and out of our reality? And if so, what does that say about our understanding of the universe? Now, here's where it gets really mind-blowing. Dr. Ross makes a fascinating point: we're living in the one spot in the universe where advanced life is possible. Not just that, but we're also living at the one time in the universe's history when we can observe the full extent of its past. This isn't just a coincidence, it's fine-tuning. And it raises a huge question: if our existence is so finely tuned, is it possible that these interdimensional beings are aware of it too? Let's go back to the idea of purpose. If these beings are watching us, influencing us, or interacting with us, then why? Are they here to help us? To harm us? Or are we just some kind of experiment to them? Here's a chilling thought: what if their purpose isn't something we can even comprehend? What if their motives are so far beyond human understanding that trying to figure them out is like an ant trying to figure out the internet? And here's another question: if they're interdimensional, does that mean they've always been here? If they're not bound by time the way we are, they could have existed before the universe began, or they could exist outside of time altogether. This brings us to an unsettling possibility. What if ancient accounts of angels, demons, gods, and spirits were just different cultures trying to explain encounters with interdimensional beings? What if the myths and legends of the past are actually fragments of a much larger, much stranger truth? But here's where it gets really interesting. If these beings are interdimensional, it means they're not just separate from us, they're connected to us in ways we can't even imagine. Think about it. If they can interact with our reality, then our reality must, in some way, overlap with theirs. Now, let me ask you this: if that's true, what does it mean for us? Does it mean we're more than just physical beings ourselves? Does it mean that we, too, might have some kind of connection to other dimensions? Here's a practical takeaway: the next time you hear about a UFO sighting, don't just think about aliens in spaceships. Think bigger. Think about the possibility that reality is far more complex than we've ever imagined. And ask yourself what else might be out there or right here that we're not seeing. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with this: the universe is vast, mysterious, and full of unknowns. But maybe the biggest mystery isn't out there, it's right here, in the nature of reality itself. So the next time you look up at the stars, remember the answers we're looking for might not be in the sky. They might be hidden in the very fabric of existence. If you've stuck with me this far, thank you. Seriously, you're the kind of person who's willing to question everything, and that's rare. But this is just the beginning. The real challenge is what you do with this information. Will you keep asking questions? Will you keep exploring? Or will you let the mystery fade into the background? If you're ready to keep going, hit that like button, share this video, and let's keep this conversation alive. Because the truth is out there, but it's up to us to find it. Now that we've explored the impossibility of interstellar travel and the mind-bending reality of interdimensional beings, let's talk about what this means for us right here, right now. Because if what we've discussed so far is even remotely true, it forces us to reevaluate everything we think we know about life, the universe, and our place in it. Let's start with a simple but profound question: what is reality? We tend to think of reality as the things we can touch, see, and measure: physical objects, natural laws, the passage of time. But what if that's only a small part of the picture? Think about this: if interdimensional beings exist, it means there are aspects of reality that we can't perceive, let alone understand. It's like trying to explain the concept of color to someone who's been blind their entire life. They might understand the science behind light and wavelengths, but they'll never truly know what red or blue looks like. Could we be that blind when it comes to the true nature of the universe? Let's tie this back to UFOs for a second. Many people report strange feelings or altered states of consciousness during UFO encounters. It's not just what they see, it's what they experience. Some describe a sense of overwhelming awe, fear, or even a loss of control over their own thoughts. Could this be a clue that these beings aren't just interacting with our physical world, but also with our minds? This idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Scientists already know that our brains are limited in what they can perceive. We only see a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum. We only hear a narrow range of frequencies, and what we do perceive is filtered through our brains, which are essentially guessing machines. Your brain fills in gaps, makes assumptions, and creates a version of reality that's useful for survival but not necessarily accurate. Here's where it gets crazy: if these beings exist in higher dimensions, they could be interacting with us in ways we don't even notice. What if their presence isn't just about UFO sightings, but about subtle influences on our thoughts, emotions, or even our culture. Let's go deeper. Throughout history, humans have reported encounters with strange beings, whether they're called gods, angels, demons, or something else. These encounters often come with messages, warnings, or prophecies. But here's the thing, the messages are often cryptic, contradictory, or even manipulative. Could it be that these beings are trying to influence us, but not in a way that's straightforward or easy to understand? This brings us to another big question: are they good or bad? Are these interdimensional beings here to help us, harm us, or something else entirely? On one hand, you could argue that if they wanted to harm us, they already would have. After all, if they're advanced enough to traverse dimensions, they're probably advanced enough to destroy us if they wanted to. But on the other hand, their behavior doesn't exactly scream benevolent teacher. They show up uninvited, they confuse us, and they leave us with more questions than answers. That's not exactly comforting. Let's pause here for a second and ask a personal question. If you encountered one of these beings, what would you want to ask it? Would you demand answers about the universe? Would you ask about the meaning of life? Or would you go deeper and ask about your own existence, your purpose, your future, your connection to this mysterious reality? Here's the hard truth: we might not be ready for the answers. If these beings are truly operating on a level beyond our comprehension, their answers might not make sense to us, or worse, they might shatter the way we see the world. But here's the silver lining: the fact that we're even asking these questions shows that we're capable of more. It shows that we're not just creatures of instinct, but beings with the capacity for curiosity, wonder, and growth. Maybe that's the real point of all this: not to have all the answers, but to keep searching for them. Before we wrap up, let's bring this back to something practical. If interdimensional beings are real, and if they're interacting with us in ways we don't fully understand, what can we do about it? First, we need to question everything. Don't just accept what you've been told about aliens, UFOs, or even reality itself. Look at the evidence, think critically, and don't be afraid to challenge your own beliefs. Second, stay curious. The universe is full of mysteries, and the more we explore, the more we learn, not just about the world, but about ourselves. And finally, consider this: if we're living in the one spot in the universe where advanced life is possible, at the one time in history when we can observe the cosmos, then maybe, just maybe, there's a reason for that. Maybe we're not just here to exist, but to observe, to question, and to grow. So here's my challenge to you: don't stop asking questions. Don't stop exploring. And don't stop wondering what else might be out there or within us. Because the truth is, the more we learn about the universe, the more we realize how little we know. If you've made it this far, thank you. You're the kind of person who doesn't just accept the surface level explanations. You dig deeper, you question, and you think critically. And that's exactly what we need more of in this world. If you found this video thought-provoking, share it with someone who loves a good mystery. Let's keep this conversation going, because the truth might not just be out there, it might be right here, waiting for us to discover it. And as always, stay curious, stay questioning, and I'll see you in the next video. Because this is just the beginning. Who knows what we'll uncover next? Okay, let's take everything we've talked about so far and push it even further. Because when you really stop and think about it, this isn't just about aliens, UFOs, or interdimensional beings. This is about us. It's about what it means to be human, what it means to live in a universe that's so much bigger, so much stranger, and so much more mysterious than we ever imagined. Let's zoom out for a second. Think about how small we are in the grand scheme of things. Our planet is one tiny speck in a galaxy of hundreds of billions of stars, and that galaxy is just one of trillions in the observable universe. But here's the kicker. Even within all that vastness, we're in the one place where advanced life can thrive. Let's break that down. Dr. Ross mentioned something absolutely mind-blowing. The conditions for advanced life are ridiculously specific. We're not just in the right galaxy, or the right solar system, or even the right planet. We're in the exact right location within our galaxy, at the exact right time in the history of the universe. Think about the odds of that. Out of all the places and times we could have been, we're in the one place where life, and not just life, but advanced, intelligent life can exist. That's not just a coincidence, that's something bigger. And the fact that we're here, asking these questions, trying to understand our place in the universe, is its own kind of miracle. But here's where it gets really interesting. What if we're not just observers of the universe, but part of it in a way we don't fully understand? What if our consciousness, our ability to think, to question, to imagine, isn't just a byproduct of evolution, but a clue to something deeper? Let's tie this back to the interdimensional beings we've been talking about. If they're real, and if they're interacting with us, then maybe they see something in us that we don't see in ourselves. Maybe they're not just observing us, they're studying us because we're unique. This raises a profound question. What makes us so special? Is it our intelligence, our creativity, our ability to love, to dream, to hope? Or is it something even deeper, something we haven't even begun to understand? Here's another way to think about it. Imagine you're an alien or an interdimensional being looking at humanity. What would you see? You'd see a species that's capable of incredible things: art, science, technology, but also a species that's deeply flawed. We fight, we destroy, we harm each other and the planet we live on. But despite all of that, we keep going. We keep creating, we keep exploring, and we keep asking questions. Maybe that's what makes us special, not that we're perfect, but that we're trying, that we're curious, that we're constantly reaching for something greater, even if we don't fully understand what it is. And maybe, just maybe, that's what these beings are interested in. Not our technology, not our planet, but us. Let's go even deeper. If these interdimensional beings are real, and if they're connected to us in some way, then what does that mean for our understanding of life and death? Could it be that our consciousness, our sense of self, our soul, if you want to call it that, isn't just tied to our physical bodies? Could it be that we too are connected to dimensions beyond our own? This isn't just speculation. Scientists have been exploring the idea that consciousness might not be limited to the brain. Quantum physicists, for example, have suggested that consciousness could be a fundamental part of the universe, like space, time, and energy. If that's true, then it opens up a whole new way of thinking about who we are and what we're capable of. But here's the big question: if we have this potential, why don't we fully understand it? Why are we so focused on the physical world, on money, power, possessions, when there's clearly so much more out there? Maybe that's the real challenge. Maybe the reason these beings don't just land in Times Square and say, "Hey, here's the truth about the universe," is because they want us to figure it out for ourselves. Maybe the process of questioning, exploring, and discovering is more important than the answers themselves. So what does this mean for you? It means you have a choice. You can go back to life as usual: work, school, scrolling through social media, or you can start asking bigger questions. What is reality? What is consciousness? What is your purpose in all of this? And here's the thing: you don't have to have all the answers. Nobody does. but the act of asking those questions, of looking beyond the surface, of challenging what you've been told, that's where the real magic happens. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with one final thought. The universe is vast, mysterious, and filled with unknowns. But maybe the biggest mystery isn't out there in the stars, it's right here, inside each of us. So, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to keep asking questions? Are you going to keep exploring? Or are you going to let the mystery pass you by? If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of the game. You're the kind of person who doesn't just accept the easy answers. You dig deeper, you think critically, and you're not afraid to confront the unknown. And that's exactly what the world needs more of. If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who's ready to start asking bigger questions. Let's keep this conversation going, because the truth isn't just out there, it's in here too. And as always, stay curious, stay questioning, and remember, the journey is just as important as the destination. I'll see you in the next video, because trust me, there's so much more to uncover.